Hello, this is Joe Tucker, President of the International Academy of Trial Lawyers, and welcome to the Academy's official podcast, The Rule of Law, The Academy Speaks. Today, I have another good and great friend of mine who's going to talk to us about hip-hop dancing. No, I'm just joking, but I am going to ask you about your hip-hop. I have with me my good friend from San Francisco in the Sussman Godfrey firm, Kalpana Srinivasan. Did I get it right?
You did, Joe.
Whoa, on the first thing. You're at the firm Sussman Godfrey. It is known as the #1 litigation firm in the country. You're an AmLaw 100 firm. What does that mean?
That's a ranking of firms that are in the sort of top revenue generating in the country. They look at how they're doing that per lawyer. Our firm used to be described as a boutique, and we still are, but I think now that we're part of that ranking, it has shown that we've transitioned into more of a mid-sized firm.
Yeah, so every significant litigation that the public has heard about, your firm has been some part of it. You are the leader of your firm.
Yes.
What position do you hold?
I'm the co-managing partner of the firm. I'm based in LA. Our firm is technically based in Houston, and until not that long ago was run by the founders of the firm. I was really fortunate, I think, to come to the firm at a time when it was growing. I've spent my entire career there and was very involved in building the Los Angeles office in particular. When our founder, Steve Sussman, passed away in 2020, it was really a pivotal moment for the firm. What does our future look like? What is the transition to tomorrow? And the firm is really forward thinking. What they wanted to signal is we want to show the world that we are looking ahead. And so I think the firm felt very strongly about having younger leadership and expressing its confidence by having a young leader, a female leader, a diverse leader.
Because you're not just a young leader, and you are a young leader at the top litigation firm in the country. You are a child of immigrants who came here to America and living out the American dream. Tell us how you got to where you are.
My parents emigrated here in '65. My father was a physician who had trained in India, who was recruited to come to the US because there was sort of a dearth of physicians here at the time. They needed medical people. And he and my mom left South India, moved to Chicago. They had some friends that were in the same position, but they really, truly, as many immigrant stories go, left behind their family. They did not have means when they came here. They didn't have resources. And they built a life here. I'm very fortunate to have parents who were incredible role models for me. My mom, in particular, she decided later in life that she wanted to become herself a doctor. And that had been a childhood dream that she was not able to fulfill in India. That was not something my grandparents could do for her. But after I was born, and when she was close to the age of 40, she said to my dad, I still would like to be a doctor. And he said, now's your time. So she began her journey to become a doctor, to set up her own practice. And their stories obviously are really motivating for me.
Well, I was going to ask, how has their life story helped direct and shape your life story so that you sit where you sit?
There are a few things that really stand out. One is when you have a community of immigrants who have just come here, a lot of times the law is not the first place they go to. They come here as physicians, doctors, scientists, engineers, perhaps some professions that transcend different countries and cultures. But now we have a generation where we have the opportunity to enter the sort of what I think of as the last mile of being part of this culture and this country, which is to be part of its laws. And I think that really always had an impact on me to know that that was an area that, is part of this process of really adopting and embracing being somewhere else.
Your parents having immigrated here in '65, and here we are now in 2025, to say the pendulum has swung towards immigrants and the demonization of immigrants is an understatement. What do you think of that?
It's mind-blowing. My parents came here at a time where immigrants were being entreated to come to help fill a need the country had, to help develop areas in the country. And it was not an easy journey. I don't think those journeys are ever easy for immigrants to come in and figure out where they sit, where their position is in this land. But they did it, and this country benefited from it. And to now, I think, have this mentality that people have taken over something or taken away something, that feeling is really uncomfortable. And I think for those of us whose parents especially came here because the U.S. had a need or because the U.S. asked them to do so, to see the whole script flipped around and to hear all this rhetoric about immigrants being takers,
yes,
rather than givers, it is really disheartening.
Well, I want to change that a little bit, but talk about givers and you and your firm. One of the many unique and great things about you, number one, and your firm, number two, is your whole structure and the way that you treat associates. Tell us a little bit about that.
We really do treat them as part of the enterprise, and that's one of the reasons I came to the firm. It's one of the reasons I spent my whole career there. It is so critical to have young lawyers feel like they are part of what's happening, and I don't mean just throwing them some tidbit here and there to do. That's not going to do it.
Yeah.
They come into our organization, and Steve Sussman, our founder, he believed in splitting everything, even at trial. The associate gets a witness, I get a witness, the junior partner gets a witness. That was his mentality, that you don't have this hyper-hierarchical view, and we've managed to preserve that even today. So our associates come in and they get to do depositions, major arguments. They are running the case day to day. They are interfacing directly with the client. They're directing strategy. We think of them as the first line of defense. Tell us what we should be doing in the case. And then, as time goes on, it makes it easier to say, look, we want this associate to handle a very important argument, or we want them to have a role at trial, because the clients have already seen them doing significant work.
Well, what's been the level of satisfaction of the associates at your firm? And I'm going to dig into that some more, but first tell us a little bit about the level of satisfaction of associates at your firm, the structure. Yeah,
the structure gives them a holistic experience. There's the aspect of learning how to do stand-up work, which is very exciting. The depositions, the hearings. But I also think we, because of our structure, give them the opportunity to develop judgment and to figure out how they're going to be in the business for the long haul. I'll give you an example. We vote on all of our non-hourly cases every week as a firm.
When you say non-hourly, you mean contingent?
Contingent, fixed fee with a risk element to it, a bonus. We vote on all of those cases, and that's the majority of our business, is non-hourly work. We vote, people put together a memo, they make a pitch for the case. We vote as a firm. We vote one lawyer, one vote, and that includes associates.
So you have a true democracy over there.
We do, and that has been a long fixture in our business, in our firm. And in addition to making them stakeholders in our decisions, because they are, it's also teaching them about the business and how they are eventually will be able to bring in work and what to look for. What are good cases? What are cases where it's difficult to establish damages or hard for us to take on and make a good recovery? And I feel like that really prepares them for the next phase, because I don't think it's sufficient to have lawyers and give them some discrete skill set and be like, we're going to teach you to be a good writer. Okay, we're going to teach you to be good at taking a depo. Fine. But how are we going to teach them to want to stay in the business
Yeah.
for a decade, 2 decades, 3 decades? And I really believe it's critical for them to see and to think about what's going to happen down the road.
I hope some managing partners are listening to this, some decision makers, because what we're seeing too often are lawyers leaving the profession early on, never to return, which is creating a problem for senior lawyers like me who are looking to bring along younger associates. And I guess this has been a good way for retention for you.
It has been a very good way. And we also really believe in transparency. When associates start at our firm, we tell them when we expect to evaluate them for partnership. When I started at the firm, that was really important to me. And I, frankly, in part, being a woman, being diverse, I was like, I don't want to have to know somebody to then recommend me to a committee, to then have the committee recommend me to a group of, it was that idea that there's like this some opaque system for moving ahead. I did not want that. I very deliberately chose a place where I could just know what's happening and also felt like I would be evaluated on the merits. Because I didn't know, maybe you don't fit in socially or whatever. And so we, to this day, have a system where we have a partnership track. People know when they'll be considered. And I just think knowing is so, and not having it be subject to potentially discretionary or decision making.
There's just something about her I can't put my finger on, that type of evaluation.
Yes, and I believe that frankly, does not benefit women. It doesn't benefit diverse lawyers, people underrepresented in our profession. The transparency, the knowledge, that is power. And so I think that for us, and frankly, I think would benefit more broadly in the legal profession, has really been very important.
What has your experience been like as a woman and a person of color who has clearly gotten there from merit? What has your experience been like at Sussman Godfrey? And can you contrast that with some of your other colleagues who are not at a Sussman Godfrey? And this is not a commercial for Sussman Godfrey. This is a commercial for transparency, for openness, and how bringing in people who are high quality and judging the merits benefits law firms and lawyers. So I just want to give that disclaimer. This is not a commercial for Sussman Godfrey, but Sussman Godfrey is a great litigation firm.
Thank you, Joe. You can also be our marketer too. It's okay, in addition to the podcast. Look, again, when you talk about how you're going to advance your lawyers, how you're going to give them opportunities, I think, and for me, being at the firm and also having the opportunity to be seen in court at a young age, be on the other side of opposing counsel who may end up being referring counsel, work with other esteemed lawyers in our profession and have them at a level where they can respect you as a peer and not just somebody who's hiding away somewhere working on a section of a brief. I think it's just career defining. It is what allowed me to feel excited, engaged in the profession, and certainly what I think contributes to our lawyers' success, because there's just not magic in waiting 5, 6, 7 years to do some of the skills of litigating. And it's a disservice to young lawyers to create this mystique around it when we should be giving them the opportunities to let them cultivate their skills, let them cultivate judgment, and really give them the chance to have a shot at being long-term attorneys in the field. And what I didn't see, I was coming up through the ranks, was that a lot of my peers were getting that kind of opportunity.
And when you speak to your peers at other firms whose names we don't need to name, have they said, I'm getting punched in the gut and it's only because of my gender. I'm getting smacked in the head and it's because I'm a person of color. How have you helped them? Because you are a role model. Even for me, you're a role model in doing what you're doing. How have you helped them navigate their challenges and the hurdles that the isms have presented in the law?
Just being open about some of it in some ways helps. Everybody wants to show how much they've accomplished, what they've done. It's hard sometimes to talk about the struggles or the difficulties to get there. And when you talk to other lawyers, and especially if they are in an environment where information is not shared, okay? When they tell me, like, I don't know X, or I don't know if my comp is being influenced by this or that, that to me is really a place where we can push and show people, like, look, there's another way to do this. And you can ask for that. You can demand to know that. That is part of your right. And so I think that's played a role as well in getting people to see that, maybe not having this black box system or these unknowns, that doesn't have to be the norm.
Well, when you're around, though, other people, do they come to you and they talk to you about, one, how did you do it? Were there struggles? Were there times you said, I can't do this? How have you helped motivate people like me and other people who are diverse, who are not and this is air quotes, traditional lawyers, close quote? What's your conversation like with us?
I talk about times, especially when I was a younger lawyer, where it didn't feel always like a natural fit. If you had told me at the start of my career that I would be, co-managing partner of this firm, it wouldn't have even crossed my mind. And so sharing those uncertainties, the maybe not naturally feeling a part of a culture, not coming from a family that had been in the legal profession or had grown up in the US, that you can maybe feel uncomfortable or awkward about those things and still want to excel and flourish in the law. And I certainly talk to young lawyers about that. It's okay, you don't have to, you may not feel like, am I like everybody here? Some of them are first generation college graduates, and you're not gonna feel that, and that's okay. And you might have to sit with that discomfort. It doesn't mean you can't be authentic to yourself to do that, or to be in a place where not everybody's like you. That's part of what your opportunity is also. And over time, I came to understand that when you're figuring that out as you go along, it's important to understand that there are bits and pieces you're gonna take from others. There are people you're gonna meet and you're gonna say, oh, that person is exceptional in what they do in this way, or that other lawyer, I think it's really cool how they're managed to balance this outside of work.
Yes.
But what I tell people, especially the young lawyers, like, you're not gonna find one person who is like, that's everything in one package. You're not. They're not gonna balance all the things the way you would wanna do it. They're not gonna have your life background. They're not, and it's sort of a false promise to think you're gonna find that one perfect mentor. And I realized that pretty early on. I saw certainly amazing female role models, lawyers that I respected, but I really realized that you have to pick and choose and carve your own path. And not to find that daunting, but to find it liberating. You're not gonna sound like that lawyer over there. Especially for trial lawyers, you see a lot of representations of trial lawyers in the media or on TV, and I'm not a swashbuckling, cowboy boot wearing male lawyer. And over time—
But you damn sure are successful.
Well, I think it speaks to the point that our concept of like what it means to be successful in this profession, what is it driven by? What informed those views, and how do we start to reshape what people see? Because the truth is, great advocates come in all shapes, sizes, colors, backgrounds, and that's the truth.
I want that to rest on people for a moment, that there is no one type of great, successful trial lawyer. And you stand as an example of that. Now I'm going to go somewhere we hadn't talked about in pre-production. You sit, at least from my perspective, at the top of the mountain, but you're also a wife, and a mother. There's this whole Sheryl Sandberg thing of work-life balance. And I work with a lot of female lawyers who often feel the tension that I don't hear from male lawyers of I have to be around my children, I have to do this, where I have never been at a dinner where a male lawyer said, oh, I got to get home for XYZ, I have to get home to take care of ABC. How have you dealt with the concept, and I say it's a concept, of work-life balance so that the societal guilt that women have has not impacted your career the way it traditionally has impacted women's careers and not impacted men's career? And I'm sorry that I didn't give that to you.
Well, that's okay, Joe, because it's a topic that I feel passionately about. First and foremost, I have to give props to having a mother who just created an environment where that guilt did not exist and does not exist. I cannot tell you the number of times where I've gone, especially when I was developing my practice, and I'd be like, oh, I'm gonna go do this thing that's a business development event. And that's always the hardest. You can explain to everybody why you need to go do a deposition or you need to be in a mediation, but how do you explain how you're not going to be home because you're going to some event where it may or may not correlate to a piece of business or
Yes.
a piece of work? That is like the place where I think, in particular, that stress of what's a work-life balance really hits the development. And I'm very fortunate that I always had a very supportive mother and partner who are like, this is the gig. This is the job. The job is not just showing up to do the tasks, it's being part of the profession. So I think for me, that was very critical to have that support system. The other is that I truly, and maybe women invented this concept of having it all. Like, what does that even mean? It's terrible.
I'm so glad you're saying this because you have such credibility to say this. So we're near time, but I don't care about time. I want you to talk about this.
What does that mean? Having it all. If you asked anybody, do you have it all? Oh no, I'd like to have an island to myself in the Caribbean named after me, right? I mean, it's a false construct that was created, and then people have to start saying, well, I don't have it all, or you can't have it all. It's like, please don't even talk about that. What does that mean? And what I realized over time for me in my life is that I did not find it helpful to evaluate, like, did I today do enough for my child versus how many hours I spent at work? That kind of calculus I found to be really unhelpful. So for me personally, I found it like, I like to look at a period of time. In this period of time, I may be super busy, I may be traveling, I may feel like the next period of time, I want to be traveling a little bit less, I want to be home a little bit more. But you can't evaluate it in a way that is so linear that all you're going to do is make yourself feel bad. And ultimately, you have to be able to kind of look at it, step back and say, if things fell a little out of whack, I'm not home as much as I want to be, tweak that.
Yeah.
And it's going to move again, but it's dynamic. For me, it absolutely did not work to be like, how much time am I spending at home? How much time am I spending with the kids? That just, I think, is a recipe for feeling bad. And recognizing that when I was a younger person, I always thought, what do you mean you need a village to raise a family? What does that possibly mean? And now I know what it means. It means accepting that your children need love and support, and you will provide some of that, but other people can also provide some of that.
Well, similar to you, I had my mother who helped me, cousins and others, because my wife, like you, she's a high flyer lawyer also. So my daughter had the burden and the luxury of having a 2-lawyer household. But I just love hearing you talk about and to deconstruct this concept or this paradigm that we have of this work-life balance. And this is about the rule of law, but to me, to be in the rule of law and to understand it and understand everything that the Academy stands for, it's about diversity. And when we have less women in the Academy, less women who are trial lawyers, that to me impacts the rule. That's why I think it's so important for people to see you, to hear your story, to understand that, you know, you have a spouse, you have a family, you have children. It's motivational.
Thank you, Joe. I like for us to recognize that there are challenges, especially when you get to the business development stage, when we start to see people maybe more attrition in the profession at the partnership level, at the leadership level. But I do also like to remind women in the profession that we have some kinds of flexibility that maybe other women in our world don't necessarily have. So I'm sure we all know women who are in the position of supporting their families and who have to go to work, who had to go to work every day during COVID, had to show up where their essential job was based. And it was really a reminder to me that with the challenges of our profession also comes the privileges.
Yes.
And for me, it's always been important to be aware of that as well. We are lucky and fortunate to have the chance to do this job, and there are many women in the world where their choices on work and life and balance, those aren't really even choices. So
Yes.
we need to be cognizant of that, even as we recognize there's more for us to do.
Yeah. And I'm glad my producer Kevin has told me we're now on YouTube, which I did not know. And I'm hoping folks can watch us on YouTube and see you and see that it can exist, that you can be a successful trial lawyer. Because even within the IATL, there's a disproportionate number of men in the organization. And when people see you, just by your mere existence, you stand as a role model. And I want to thank you for being that, just who you are and what you're doing. It is so motivational. And I'm hoping that there are other law firms that will follow the model that you guys have set at Sussman Godfrey and the bar that you guys have had there. And I swear to you, I'm not doing a commercial for you guys, but facts are facts.
Well, if I can say, Joe, when I talk about taking bits and pieces from people you meet and using that to learn and to figure out who you want to be, I include you in that. When I see how you lead an organization and you do it with integrity and passion and purpose, that's motivational for me.
Thank you.
Because it just shows how much you can influence and impact people when your intention is right.
Thank you. Now, my traditional thing has been, what gives you hope? But I don't want to ask you that. I want people to listen to this podcast and to listen to you, to where you are and what you're doing. And that gives hope to everyone. You give me hope. You keep me motivated. Being around you, I'm like, she's doing it. Because I was once at a very large firm and I didn't think I could do it. And I see you and I know what it takes to make it through. And you are just such a role model for all of us. And I appreciate you. And go ahead.
Thank you, Joe. It's been a long journey. There have been a combination of luck and being in the right place at the right time and having the right support system. And I think importantly, not forgetting who you are and where you came from. And I don't forget that. And it's helped me immensely to always remember and hear my own parents talk about, like, they just can't even wrap their brain around thinking their journey coming from the other side of the world to being here to seeing their child just in one generation become a lawyer and become part of the profession. So I think that really helps to make me feel fortunate about the profession rather than feeling that it is a burden or feel that it's notwithstanding all the challenges that we are lucky.
Kalpana, thank you for being here today. And to you guys, thank you for listening to The Rule of Law, The Academy Speaks.
Thank you, Joe.